Hi, this is Jake from BandLabs, and in this video, we're going to make a Nightcore beat in BandLab's free online DAW. You can open this project yourself with the link in the video description, and if you find this guide useful, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to know when new videos drop. Usually Nightcore tracks are just sped up versions of pop or dance hits, but here we're going to make our own music from scratch. I start by setting the project tempo to 145 BPM and the project key to B flat minor. The first element I want to make is a solid, punchy kick drum sound. I open BandLab's Sounds, click the One Shots tab, and enter kick into the search field. Kick 504 is the kind of sound I'm looking for. I create a new sampler track and drop kick 504 onto the first sample pad. I move the sample start marker to the beginning of the kick so that it plays tightly when triggered. I want to add a 90s style mid-range kick layer, so I duplicate the sample onto the second pad. To duplicate sample pads, notes, or clips in BandLab, hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and drag them over. I set this pad's pitch to +12, giving us a high-pitched kick sound. I sequence both kicks to play on each beat of a 4-bar clip. To give me more headroom in the mix to add other elements, I turn this track down to -6 dB. I feel like this kick could benefit from some compression, so I open the effects panel and add a Dynamics BL1176 compressor. I'd like some other drum sounds in the track, so I create a new virtual instrument track. I set this track to Drums, Drum Pads, 909 kit. I turn this track down to -10 dB. I sequence open hats between the beats and claps on every other beat. Again, I add a BL1176 compressor. Now I want to compose some chords. I add a new instrument track and set this one to Strings, String Orchestra. I set this track to -8.3 dB. I compose a chord progression that plays B flat minor, D flat minor, F minor, E flat minor. I want the sound to be smoothed out, so I add a tone multi-filter effect. I set the frequency knob to 650 Hz. Now I'd like to add a bass line. Add a new instrument track and set this one to basses, synth basses, lately bass. I add a BL1176 to this track too. I compose a bass line that follows the root notes of the chords and plays in between the beats. Now it's time for a lead. I set a new instrument track to keyboards, synth keys, future keys. I turn the track down to -5.5 dB. This part also plays between the beats, but this time it plays B flat, E flat, B flat, F. I feel like this element could do with a little more interest, so in the effects panel I add a delay, filter echo. I set the mix to 35% and the delay to 316 milliseconds. I also add a reverb, studio reverb with a mix set to 23%. I'd also like a pad sound. Add a new instrument track and set it to keyboards, synth pads, warm pad. This part follows the root note of the chord progression. I feel like I have the main elements of the track now, but I want to add some samples to help make creating an arrangement easier. In BandLab's Sounds, I click the Loops tab and search for Riser. I drag Speeding Riser into the project. I set this track's volume to -7 dB. I'd also like a snare roll to help transition between sections, so I enter snare roll into the text search field. All night snare roll is the one for me, and I position this at the end of the 4-bar sequence. I want a crash cymbal, so I search for crash. Ibiza crash is the feel I'm after, and I put this at the start of the sequence. I only want the first crash to play, so I truncate the clip using the handle at the bottom right-hand corner. I set this track to -6 dB. For the arrangement, I begin with 8 bars of pad and the clap from the 909. Then the lead comes in. On bar 17, the kick comes in, and we have a build-up to the drop. On the drop, the bass and open hat come in, and we lose the lead and pad. 8 bars later, the pad comes back in. Then the lead comes back in. Then the strings come in, and we have a 16-bar section where everything is playing. At bar 65, we go into the bridge, where we just have the drums and bass, and the bass switches up to just playing on B flat. 8 bars later, an alternative version of the lead comes in. This just plays B flat and E flat. After this, we revert to everything playing again as before for 16 bars. You could fork this project and make your own version of it using the link in the video description. Have fun!